Crystal Palace, it's fair to say, were on the wrong end of a thumping. And at the end of it, towards the end, there was a moment when a couple of banners appeared in the Crystal Palace section at the Emirates. Wasted potential on and off the pitch. Weak decisions taking us backwards. And then another one. No shared vision, no structured plan. Parish out, Yanks out. And Roy Hodgson was seen to stand in the technical area. I was just staring at them. Simon, this is a club you owned. Where are they at the moment? Crystal Palace right now, I'll tell you where they are, 15th. They've won 5 in 21.
Mm-hmm.
The messages coming out from the away end at the Emirates, were they more directed not so much at Hodgson, but at the board, at the people that you sold to?
I use the term sold loosely. Yeah, absolutely. Of course they are. I mean, because Hodgson's in the dugout because they put him there. And it's directed at everybody. It's directed at the way the team are playing. It's directed at the style of football. It's directed at the fans' perception of what they think they're entitled to after being 10 years in the Premier League. It's directed at the perceived lack of ambition. It's directed at the idea that our rivals, albeit laughable rivals in terms of geography, Brighton seem to be everyone's poster boy for how to run a football club, etc., 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 etc. Now, I'm not averse to picking up a cudgel and smashing it around Steve Parish's head, but let's be clear. The football club in 2021, 22 has lost over 120 million quid. So someone's propping that up, right? Then their financial affairs in 22, 23, I shouldn't imagine will be much better. And they'll probably just be underneath financial fair play. That's the reality of the circumstances. When you start unfurling banners about Parish out and Yanks out to whom and who's going to replace them and to what end? I'm not suggesting that this is something that the fans should be appreciative of. I'm not suggesting that Roy Hodgson's appointment for another season, when he came in and did a decent job fixing the challenges that Patrick Vieira left, was a brave decision. I've said it was an uninspiring decision, not because I don't like Roy and not because I don't admire him as a football man. I don't admire his brand of football. I think he's done very well at lots of football clubs that have got lesser expectations because it doesn't put the pressure on. When he was at England, I think he was uninspiring. When he was at Liverpool, he was uninspiring. When he was at Inter Milan, he was uninspiring.
You've always pushed back on the idea, and I pushed it, that Crystal Palace is a football club that's treading water. The fans think that. Quite clearly they think that. Treading water.
They can tread in a puddle in the Championship if they want, if that's better. The bottom line is that they're in the Premier League. I owned that football club for 10, 11 years, and Ron Nodes owned it for 25 years. And we would have broken our arms off at the shoulders to have kept that team in the Premier League for 10 years. Now, you've got to give credit where credit's due. And football fans in this day and age are entitled to have their view, and that's the nature of the beast. And you can't sit there during COVID and say, well, one thing we miss is fans, and when we get them back in, we don't want to hear their opinions. It's the style of football that I concur with them about. I don't think it was an inspired decision to bring Roy back in. But they've made that decision, and I don't think it's particularly clever that they're shouting out a board and Parish, but that's what football fans do. It goes with the territory. Who are you going to replace them with? Who's going to pick up that £120 million of the losses they did in the last 2 or 3 seasons? You lot? You lot, are you? That's what you're going to do, are you? So I'm a Crystal Palace fan. I've always loved the Palace fans. I enjoyed a very good relationship over the 10, 11 years that I was there. And I don't like Parish. And I do think he's lucky. And I do think he built a business off the back of a platform that I built. But that's all my bit of vitriol. Let's be fair about it. The fact of the matter is, this is a moment in time. Palace have danced this dance many times before about being 15th in the league at this time of the season, and they sail away from it. What is it you expect them to do? Do you expect them to be able to... and Friedman, repeatedly, and I'm a fan of Dougie Friedman, has made good decisions in the transfer market. Now, I know that everyone's up for grabs right now. Hodgson's a waste of time. Parish is a loser. Dougie Friedman's made bad decisions. Is it to be admired? With due respect to Tony Bloom, and you make this case about how wonderful they are.
I was just about to.
Tony Bloom's 400 million in the hole. Yeah. Oh, well done. Fantastic. Great that you built that football club back, but not everybody wants to do it that way. And I would suggest that the main issue needs to be about the style of play. And even that to me kind of irks me a little bit because I'm a pragmatist.
You brought them up, so I'll bring it up. Brighton. Palace fans would love to be a Brighton.
Moment in time. Let's see how they're doing in 5
Brighton
years' time.
are smashing it in Europe at the moment. Palace fans would love to be in Europe at the moment.
Of course they would.
But they've got a benefactor that is prepared to put his hand in his pocket big time. And where they've done remarkably well, Brighton, is they've gone to non-established, I say that with all due respect, non-established countries in South America and Central America and pull players out.
Palace should have done that, though.
Yeah.
There's no argument
But
that Palace...
basically, would you?
Palace could have done that, couldn't they?
I've got
They
no
could
i-
have done that.
Ashworth was the
Are
instigator.
you saying there's no buyer for Palace out there?
No, there'll be a buyer for Palace.
Of course there would be.
It depends on what price it's out there for, and depends what people think it's worth. And you can argue about Textor. Oh, well, Textor put loads of money in. Yeah, and then look at what Textor wanted to do. I'm not having this argument that the Premier League clubs should be able to transfer clubs between connected players. I want that in the... Oh, you do you? You're an American that wants to be able to cross-pollinate between players so that we can ignore the governance of the game and find a way round
But
it.
I'm confused by your message this morning. What is your message to Palace fans? Put your banners away.
My message to Palace fans is I don't have a message for Palace fans. It's not my job to impart a message to Palace fans. My opinion on the
Well,
matter.
it sounds like it. Suck it up.
No, my opinion is to be pragmatic in your view, because the alternative is, yeah, I get the dynamic around Roy. I get it, and maybe change him at the end of the season and get a more progressive
with
thinking
all due
manager.
respect,
And that would be optics.
And I know what you did, and we know what you did over a decade. But those Palace fans were there on Saturday. You're not. They're paying their good money. You're not. You've already done that in a huge way. I guarantee
And they're
you.
entitled to their opinion.
But they are in and amongst it.
But they're entitled to their opinion. But you're asking me what my view on it is, right? And my view on it is they're entitled to their opinion. But the reality of it is, if you start, it's very easy to pull things apart. It's much more easier to suggest solutions. Okay, wheel Steve Cooper in, right? Wheel whoever you think it is next. And when he doesn't work out, point your finger at everybody else besides the reality of certain players not performing. And there is, of course, it's really easy for me to jump on a bandwagon. There's nothing more that I'd like to do is give Steve Parish a cat of nine tails. But I'm also not an inequitable person, and I think that most Palace fans will look at it and say, we want to see a better brand of football. We want to see if you'll get more games being won. But look at the most recent run of form.
Right.
It hasn't been that bloody bad. The football might not be great, but it hasn't been that bad.
Well, don't faint when I say this, but if you were Parish, would you have Roy stay in charge until the end of the season?
If it's very difficult for me to answer
No,
that question.
No, it's not.
Because I'm not Rod Stewart's
Simon.
long lost son, which was what Steve Parish is. But I am.
If you were in charge right
well,
now,
I wouldn't have kept Roy on for the season. So you're asking me a question that I wouldn't have been at the beginning of.
Okay, would you have go back a year? Would you have employed him to keep you up?
I don't know the answer to that, because what I understand the malaise was that Patrick and his coaching staff had lost everybody. Right?
I think it was a common sense approach from Palace a year ago.
Yeah,
Bring Roy back. Roy knows his way around that football club, knows his way around football. I think he's suffering because Palace have a squad of players that need to have the best players fit. We mentioned David Moyes earlier. You know, a manager's job is to manage the situation week by week, injury by injury. And you have to have your best players available to you every week in the Premier League. That is a priority. That is the reality of it for these clubs that can't carry the big expensive squads. And I think Roy suffered because, Wilfried Zaha going for a start, and then some of his key players, his more creative goal scorers have been out injured.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be critical of Roy.
I mean,
I think it's a safe pair of hands, and I believe with that group of players, they will survive. Where I would be slightly critical, would you subscribe to this thought? The longer you're in the Premier League, the further for a club like Palace, the further you should get away from the threat of relegation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes.
I always
But they're not
feel
gonna
that.
good point.
But they're
I
not going
always
to spend the
feel
money.
that. But, there's the criticism that
they're
goes
not
back
Should
to
be
the board.
miles from that area.
That's what goes back to the board then, not Roy.
Well, other people should be miles away from that area. Like Everton should be miles away from that area. Let's have that argument. Put aside the
No, but
fact-
look at the board. But
Let's
Simon,
have-
look at the performance. You brought Brighton up, I didn't. Look at the performance of the two boards. Brighton recruited Bissouma and McAllister before Dan Ashworth arrived.
Fantastic. And currently, Brighton are on vogue. And currently they are. So Palace go and play Brighton recently, draw 1-1. They go to Man City for Christ's sakes and get a 2-2 draw up there. They get marginally done by Liverpool. They've beaten Brentford. Now, they were bang average Brentford, but they still beat them, right?
And they've come back
So
to a
it's not-
refreshed Arsenal who've been away in the sunshine.
Yeah.
But they've still been at the cold face Palace. What do people want? Roy knows his way. Roy will keep you up, and then from the end of the season,
Then change it then. Change it then. I mean,
So absolutely tread water until the end of the season.
So what was the
what do
expectation?
you mean tread water? Survive.
Staying in
Yeah.
the Premier League.
That's
Let Roy take it to the end of the season.
and if he can get
If
his
you're
best
a Palace
players
fan
fit,
at
he
home
will survive.
listening to this, you're like, what? Next weekend is all important, and next weekend they play Sheffield United. What happens if Sheffield United get a win?
Pressure gets bigger
pressure
again.
gets
Where I
building.
would
The
be.
pressure builds. Like journalists will ask Roy Hodgson a ridiculous question. What do you think about the board? Well, that's not my job to answer that question. Ask the board. Well done, you, Roy. I actually felt well done you for saying that. The bottom line is that he's in a situation where the Palace fans liked the style of football that he played at the middle of last season, because he picked up a group of players that had Wilfried Zaha in it, had Eze in it. Everyone was at it. They were going on a different way, and now the wheels have come off. Palace will not get relegated. Palace will stay in the Premier League.
I'm saying that. I tell you what, I was disappointed in the first goal they conceded at the weekend. Gabriel, all over the young defender.
Yeah, Richards.
No one complained.
Yeah.
No one. The player who was fouled didn't complain.
Yeah.
None of the other players on the pitch complained. You know, everyone's looking for that edge. Everyone's looking to plant a seed with the referee for the next corner, the next free kick that comes into the box. None of them complained. Well, that is not what I want from my players.
No, exactly, Graeme. Let's find out where Crystal Palace are in the eyes of the fans, and I've got a rough idea in the eyes of some of them, that's for sure. Have Crystal Palace reached their fork in the road moment? Supporters expect, rightly, to get more out of the club. They're proud to support the club. We're talking about Crystal Palace going to the Emirates. And of course, this is a club you know better than most.
Indeed.
But at the moment, Graeme made a very good point. Surely the longer you're in the Premier League, the more distance you should create between yourselves and relegation.
Oh, right.
I think that's a great point.
So everything
You're saying, Palace fans, honestly, they should be grateful for what they've got.
No, I'm not quite saying that. I'm saying you should get context. And not everything in life is linear. It doesn't just go that way. It doesn't just a natural, because you're saying, well, you know, there's plenty of football clubs you can say that argument to that are no longer in the Premier League.
All right.
You can make that argument about in a variety of different things. But yet, I think they should do better. Of course I do. I think they should be more ambitious. I think they should be more forward-thinking. I think they should have a more dynamic management. I agree with all that. But I don't
But
agree.
you're not having the banners.
Oh, well, I don't think it's particularly constructive or pragmatic.
But it's how they feel, and that's how they can voice their feelings.
So I feel lots of things, but it doesn't mean that the facts can be undermined. The football club loses 120 million quid over 3 years. Who's going to pay that then?
Should rather they were
You
quiet
lot?
and it gets to full time at the end at 5-0. That's us leaving now.
No, it's a bad result. It's a bad result against Arsenal, but Arsenal are a better side than Crystal Palace.
Let's find out what the Palace fans
Bigger club.
really think. Darren is a big Palace fan who is at the Emirates. Darren, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on again. I spoke to you guys about 2 weeks ago.
Yes, I remember you, Darren. Yeah.
I'm ringing up today purely because there's such a disconnect from the fan base and the football club at the moment. I mean, in my time as being a Palace fan, I think I've only felt that way once before. But at the moment, there's such a disconnect. I've just listened to Simon saying that we've actually not had a bad run of results. We've won 2 games in 17 matches. The 2 wins have come against teams below us in the league, in Burnley and Brentford, who are now actually above us. If we continue on that trajectory, 2 wins in 17, which is all we have left now, 17 matches, then ultimately we are going to be relegated. Now, yes, we've picked up a decent draw against Brighton. We got a decent draw at Man City. But they're few and far between. We're not beating teams in and around us, and that's previously where Roy Hodgson was known for getting results against the teams in and around you. And we're not doing that. We've lost to Luton in recent weeks.
Which is a bad result.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, at the moment, you're saying about the banner, it's not ideal, but it's the only way that we can put our frustrations across at the moment.
Only way you can express yourselves. I mean, no shared vision, no structured plan, parish out, Yanks out. So you stand by every bit of that, Darren, do you?
To some degree. I mean, my main priority at Palace, as I said to you the other week, it's not about spending loads of money. We haven't got it. We know that. So therefore, we have to be smarter in the way that we recruit, with the way that we set up on matches. You know, under Patrick Vieira in the first season, yes, people harp on about we had Conor Gallagher and we had Wilfried Zaha, but we also didn't have Eze in his first season because Eze was out for pretty much for a season. So, you know, we're the same side under Vieira as we pretty much are now, minus that we've got Lerma in it now and we haven't got Gallagher, but we've got Eze back. And we went to Arsenal under Vieira and drew 2-2. You know, in life, if you set your aims low, then that's all you're going to achieve. I mean, again, before we went to Arsenal, the press conference with Hodgson, he pretty much had said we were going to lose the game before we even arrived there. You know, again, at the end of his press conference after the game, he then blamed the younger players on it again and said that, he shouldn't have made the subs that he made because ultimately he should have protected the 3-0 loss. As a Palace fan, all we want to do is go and watch our team try to win a game of football, whether that's win or lose. There was a guy 2 rows behind me on Saturday that said, we can't go out and attack because if we do, we're going to lose 5-0. Well, as far as I was aware, the result was 5-0 and we played the way we did. You know, we've got a 40-year-old centre-back in James Tompkins still at the club. You know, it's just not acceptable. If you turn up for work every day, and Simon, you know this more than anybody, you've been in sales and that, if your team's underperforming, you're going to pull them in and say, hold on a minute, guys, this isn't acceptable. Unless you put your ideas up, you're out.
Darren, many good points there. I really appreciate your call. I'm letting James have a word as well. James is a Palace fan who's been waiting quite a few minutes. James, good morning. Do you echo what Darren's just said?
Morning, guys. Thank you for having me on again.
James.
We spoke just before Christmas.
Yeah,
I think Darren has made some excellent points. If you read the words carefully at the weekend, you know, it doesn't necessarily say Royals parish out, but what it does say is weak decision making from top to bottom. You know, if you look at any club, I'd say within the Football League, non-league, the 3 key points to me is targets, progression and development. The target of the club, you know, what's our ambitions for this season? The development, that might be on and off the pitch, players, coaching staff, and progression. Where's the club moving forward? If you look at all 3 of those points, I think there is a shared vision from all the fans. We don't know. We don't actually know where this club is going. You know, I know it's chalk and cheese. You look at Ranić coming at United, it was a stopgap move. They knew where the club was going for the new season. We've brought Roy in. He's done a fantastic job after Vieira to keep us safe. But I'd like to just see now, where's the next step forward?
Where's the next step forward? Where's the next step forward? I get it. James, thank you very much indeed. You heard Darren, you heard James. Where's the next step forward, Simon? Obviously, they've got to beat Sheffield United thereafter.
Well, yeah. I mean, I imagine if he doesn't get a result against Sheffield United and then goes and gets his head handed to him at Brighton, then they'll have a bigger question to ask and answer. And I imagine the question will get answered after those games if they don't go the right way. Again, I'm not disagreeing with the principle. I have maintained the view. I tread this line carefully because I don't want to give anybody headlines of a former owner going back and going against a current owner because I hated it myself. But I didn't like the appointment of Roy for the new season. I could understand it and relate to it, and Graham's quite right to look at the challenges they had with Vieira and then put Roy Hodgson in to give them a steady pair of hands to get them out of that problem. But then to go again with Roy feels to me that it lacked ambition. I've said it. I said it from the outset. It lacks ambition. It understandably will give you an outcome that keeps you in the Premier League. But if you're trying to sell something to somebody and you're trying to bring them with you, and the rumblings from the fans were that they weren't happy, whilst you've got to make decisions, fans are only privy to certain things. And of course that they're privy to what they see on a Saturday afternoon. But there's lots of things that go on behind the scenes that they're not always privy to as to the reasons why decisions get made.
No,
but
at the end
of the day, you're in the business end of something. If you lose games on Saturday, they couldn't care less what they're not privy to.
Yeah.
They want to see a team winning, and after that, they want to see a team winning in a certain way, in a different way than perhaps Palace fans have seen them won. But again, I can't help it. Maybe I'm just being contrarian. I'm looking at Palace's results since they beat Man United in September 1-0 at Old Trafford, and looking at games and thinking, well, they've lost games that, you know, that they've drawn games that perhaps they should have got some results out of in terms of
1-2 and 17.
But look at the teams that they've played. When Newcastle were flying in October, flying. Anyone expect Newcastle not to beat Palace? They beat them. Spurs flying in October. Did anyone not expect Spurs to beat Palace? And there's a couple of games in there, the Evertons of the world and the Lutons. And by the way, Luton have given everybody a kicking at Kenilworth Road, all of them. Liverpool scratched out a draw. Arsenal scratched out a win.
Okay.
Chelsea
City
scratched. So this is not. When
So
I say it's a bad
you're
result,
giving them a pass.
I'm not giving them a pass. I'm giving them context.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.